Here we are, ladies and gentlemen, at the pinnacle of natural sports in Reno, Nevada, the Natural Olympia Bodybuilding and Fitness Competition, the largest, most prestigious competition in the world, where the best of the best of international natural athletes come to compete. Now presenting Linda Berry, Miss Natural Olympia, proud wearer of the silver medal, November 12, 2010.
Through the years, there have been athletes who have had to handle tremendous adversity and pain, and they've had to do so publicly, on a grand stage, in front of thousands upon thousands of eyewitnesses. The stories of athletes moving forward and succeeding in their achievements and successes, in spite of burdensome hardship or crushing pain, are gripping and compelling in their shared humanity. These tales, endlessly fascinating for their sheer defiance of the odds, have long proven inspirational and motivational for people of all walks of life. This is Linda's story. It is also intertwined with the life story of one of her 4 daughters, Ashley. A story of how one mother learned that the devastation brought on by sorrow, by the heartache over the loss of a child, that this all-consuming grief does not have to devour the grieving mother after all.
Get back farther.
Life in the Keynes family was typical in many ways, certainly early on. Then, as typical as life can be, when it all comes apart, as divorce shakes things up, life gets radically altered when you're suddenly a single mother with 4 daughters, as Linda became. In addition, Linda worked hard so that all of the girls, Natasha, Ashley, Shanae, and Skylar, could stay together through it all. But Ashley was always the one who would try so hard to shine and stay in the forefront.
Ashley was probably one of the most beautiful children I've ever seen. She was just gorgeous, and she was very strong. She was physically strong, and she was emotionally strong. And then she had this little angelic look, you know, these little blonde curls, and she was precious. She took a lot of attention, which about wore her mom out, but she was also sort of tortured. Her mind went 100 miles an hour, and it was very hard to keep her occupied.
Ashley loved Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and she loved to battle, just like my 5-year-old does. So she would run around the house. She'd put hangers in the back of her shirt, and she would run around the house and fling them because she was a Ninja Turtle. And so I think that was probably the earliest of her tomboy battles. I don't know any other little, like, 8-year-olds that loved Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Yes.
My other sister, Shanae, who's closer to my age but older, we got in fights all the time. And so whenever Shanae would be, you know, trying to pummel me or chase me around the house, I would then run and go and tell Ashley, and she would always come, and she would always kind of come to my rescue.
Ashley's right over there.
There's Ashley right there. Ashley!
Starting early on, Ashley was always extremely competitive, competing with everyone on absolutely everything she endeavored to do, from making sure she got all A's in school, to challenging her own endurance as a star soccer player. However, Ashley was also challenged by being a middle child in a single-parent household and exhibited the resulting hunger for attention. In addition, she faced some of the characteristic preteen pressure to be judged by looks and to always look skinny, even model thin. With that comes a failure to meet this impossible ideal, this exaggerated body type. With that disappointment comes the associated danger of falling into an eating disorder.
Back at 11, she got attention in a negative way. She had kind of always needed to do things to sort of get the light shown on her. So I think I sort of minimized that she had an eating disorder. Shanae and Skylar, on a regular basis, would always hear Ashley in the bathroom throwing up. And they just kind of didn't think anything of it except, ooh, that's really gross. And once in a while they'd say something, but nobody really thought anything about it.
Nobody knew that she had an eating disorder, and I went into treatment for having anorexia when I was 13. And after I was in residential treatment, Ashley came out about being bulimic.
Skylar was dangerously, acutely anorexic. I feared every day that Skylar was going to die. Skylar was my focus. That also really bothered Ashley. There would be many times when Ashley would go, Mom, I'm really anorexic and bulimic too. Why is Skylar getting all the attention?
A lot of the kids think they can get away with anything. You know, they think they can not eat or drink, or don't tell me, I'm young. So they just don't realize that they can abuse their body and put themselves in a difficult situation.
At the age of 20, Linda's daughter Ashley enlisted in the Army, perhaps hoping that boot camp and service to her country would help cure her of her eating disorder. As usual, the competitive nature of Ashley came to the forefront. She proved to be an outstanding soldier. She went all the way to become the top soldier in her class of recruits.
The Army was her salvation. The Army was the thing that really, really meant something to her. She excelled at it. She was honored as the #1 soldier of her entire battalion of 300. There was only a handful of them that got awards, and she was one of them.
Not surprisingly, it was the soldier's creed that seemed to have resonated so well with Ashley. Being a warrior, being a member of a team, placing the mission first, never accepting defeat, never quitting, and being a guardian of freedom. She hadn't changed from that focus ever since she was an 8-year-old Ninja Turtle.
She was so intelligent, she was so outgoing, she was so strong. You know, she struggled with an eating disorder, but yet she was able to be in the Army and get voted the #1 soldier in her platoon.
She felt worthy, she felt accomplished, she felt like this was her place to shine. She was just beaming and everything seemed to be okay. This was really her saving grace.
How much is that?
After Ashley completed her active duty service as a combat medic, she returned to civilian life and got trained as a medical technician in a hospital in Los Angeles. By this time, everyone hoped that those inner demons in her life were sorted out and that she was all set to move forward in a positive direction.
During the teen years, it was really tough. We didn't really get along really well. We fought a lot. And when she went into the service and she really seemed like she was trying to get a handle on her life, and she was having a relationship with my son, and we were seeing her more and we wanted her around, and then it just seemed to go back downhill for her again.
It was so ironic that Ashley was trained as a medic and knew all about the workings of the human body, along with how to help her fellow comrades in battle. But she still couldn't help herself when destroying her own body. Ashley fell back into a negative spiral, beginning again with her previous binging and purging, to where she was controlled by her terror and her sickness, one where she simply could not stop.
When you have bulimia, how most bulimic individuals tend to die is because their electrolytes get messed up and one thing leads to another and they have a heart attack. And that was one thing that I would always yell at her about. My mom tried to get her hospitalized a few times, but was successful getting her hospitalized once, but she's an adult, so they can only hold her for so long.
She'd been there for a few days and said, I don't need this. This is nonsense. I don't need it. I can do it on my own. Come on. I was honored in my battalion. I don't need this. It's just an eating disorder, so what? And I started crying, and I got closer, and I said, Ashley, I am really scared. You've been purging now for 8 years. Every day of your life for 8 years, you have been throwing up. I am really scared that this is going to kill you. And my last words was, I am really scared.
The end of the line was inevitable. Ashley's body had ultimately begun to fail and to fall apart. Her vital organs deteriorated, caused by years of throwing her body off balance, and she went into the hospital for the last and final time.
Basically what I got is her acidic level is such that she's going to die within 5 hours. At that point, everything that was Linda was gone.
I never believed that she was actually going to die. You always, hope that they're gonna wake up. And I remember just like holding her hand and screaming for her to wake up. Just screaming. And you know that it's not really possible, but you're kind of hoping for a miracle.
So, that all kind of hits when you're there in the hospital. And I remember putting her hand on my belly so that Charlie could feel her. She was going to be Charlotte Juliet, was in the womb. That's what we decided on. And actually it was Eric's suggestion when we were in the hospital that we name her Charlotte Ashley. I think I felt that I should want to name her Ashley. I didn't think that I could I couldn't have another Ashley, but it felt right, and when Eric suggested it, I thought he had kind of a difficult relationship with Ashley too, so that came from the heart, and if it was okay with him, certainly it was okay with me, and she was Charlotte Ashley, and that was it.
I was at a place I had never been before. I was at a place where when you think every parent thinks of getting that phone call, every parent thinks of the worst nightmare. At that moment I realized, oh my God, that's what this is. This is that moment.
I see those situations. I've been a nurse and been in those situations, so I was pretty impressed that Linda could step back and take time to let me say goodbye to Ashley. And she was just, she was a candle that burned out too soon. She had so many things she could have done.
The guy walks in and he goes up to the machine, and it's like he starts shutting it down. And then he shuts it down and we just watch. And it's like you could see, because the machine was pumping air, and you could see like slowly her chest would just stop moving. And then it stopped.
From that day, like with that horrible beeping sound, I remember like them taking her off the machine and hearing her last little like breath of air, and it was just, it felt so wrong.
My daughter was exactly the same age as Ashley. Anytime I bring her name, looks like my heart is gonna pump out. She was so beautiful. That day I wrote, Ashley, I love you. I hope you get my message. I hope you sleep in the peace.
It was just a really, really dark time. Everybody was so depressed and so miserable and crying all the time. I don't even want to use the word hysterical because it was so much more dramatic than that. It was like, I didn't feel guilt about anything. I didn't feel like I had not shown her enough love. It was just the guilt that she passed away, and there was nothing else to it. People scare me. Everything scares me. I have anxiety just about leaving and fears of death. It sounds so pathetic being that I'm only 21. I don't know where I want to go from here.
After Ashley's death, her mother, Linda, was consumed by sorrow. She descended into a grief-stricken depression. It was nothing short of total despair and regrets at failing to save her daughter.
The one thing as a mother is that you always want to protect your kids. And when you lose one, even though I did everything I could do, I feel guilty still. I couldn't save her. So even talking about this in the presence of these three, like I don't want them to see my pain.
Thank you all for your beautiful sharing.
I remember she would be so strong, but then she would have these horrible breakdowns, and it was just such extremes of having everything sucked into having these emotional breakdowns. It's weird what death does to you, and I'd say at this point I'm kind of just stuck, unfortunately.
That wasn't really like a super great
I don't even get that.
I don't either. I don't know.
I've never really been super close with my mom. She tried to help. I just didn't really want help. I feel like for some reason Ashley's death affected us all so dramatically that we didn't feel like we wanted to burden each other with those feelings, so we didn't talk to each other. We're all so emotional, we're all so dramatic that we chose to just not talk to anyone.
Losing a child, that's a hole you cannot fill. It's very difficult to fill. Even people who have other children, unfortunately I deal with that in my work, but it's very difficult to fill. So, all those important dates, Mother's Day, her birthday, those kind of things, were very sad because there's a hole in your life.
I saw her, looks like her body was here, her mind was someplace else. Looks like I was talking, are you okay? It looks like she was a space. She was completely confused and shocked. For a long time, she could, almost 2-3 months, she could come to work. I guess few times she passed out, they had to call 911, take her in the emergency room.
There have definitely been times when I have really been in a really low, dark place since Ashley's death, and I thought, why? Why? I'm so done. This is too much. This is too painful. I'm really done. Ashley's death could have totally taken me out.
It is actually quite common for parents to have suicidal thoughts after the passing of a child. A few of the many reasons include separation anxiety and the horror of never being able to speak with the child again, the parents' desire to be with their child, and the feeling of complete loss of everything meaningful. Almost as a last resort, Linda began to reach out for help in a last-ditch effort to cope with her grief. She ultimately found a grief support group of mothers who have all lost a child.
In 2005, I lost my son, and I went to a support group. And they had already been meeting for about 3 or 4 weeks. They told me I couldn't come because they had already bonded. So I was devastated and realized there was no place for help for people like me that had lost a child in the community where we live. So I just started reaching out to people that have lost children.
Now I'm supposed to ask you guys if anybody did your homework.
And then it just expanded, and within a year we had about 30 moms getting together once a month. We'd meet at different people's houses and have dinner and just encourage each other throughout the month.
I lost my son, Derek Ryan Simone, in July of 2006. And I met Linda in 2008 in November. I was hosting a mother's dinner. Each of us mom, we volunteered to host a dinner once a month in our home, and that was my very first year that I hosted a mom's dinner.
There's a time in your grief journey that you make a conscious decision that you're either going to walk through it or you're going to stay stuck. And you have to have a positive support group to be able to do that. You cannot do it by yourself. You have to have a support group. You have to have people that understand and encourage you and validate your feelings so that you can get from where you are to where you want to be instead of staying stuck.
I just felt so sorry for Linda because she was in so much pain. There's so much raw pain there that you're just devastated, and you can't seem to focus. You can't get from point A to point B. And when she came in, I felt really sorry that she was going through that first loss, because she had just lost Ashley.
Linda had always been relatively fit and trim, especially as a mother of 4 daughters. A colleague suggested that she start weightlifting, and shortly afterwards, Linda got introduced to a world champion bodybuilder who agreed to become her trainer.
And we share a mutual doctor, and he had commented on her muscle tone, and he told her, well, if you're really serious, I know Ms. Universe. And she goes, are you kidding, really, seriously? So then he called me and asked if he could give Linda my number, and I said, certainly. So she called me and we scheduled an appointment. She came into the gym, and she was all gung-ho on the phone, so I thought I was gonna see this little hot shot that already looked like a bodybuilder. So she came in and she looked like just somebody's mom.
When Ashley died, my world became stagnant. And when I started going to the gym and lifting those weights, it created motion.
She was devastated, depressed, sad, brokenhearted, and I'm a mother myself, and I didn't even know this woman, but she made me break down because I put myself in her shoes and thought, I couldn't even walk if I were her. I would be so lethargic and in bed, but here she was. She had picked herself up, and through all her sorrow and all her personal loss that I could only just imagine a fraction, and it would just kill me inside.
Once I started that, it's just the momentum, and then before we knew it, I started putting on some muscle. I didn't ever intend on competing. It was just something to where I just wouldn't be dying inside.
There was a lot of workouts that were tears, a lot of workouts. She was too depressed, she couldn't do it, but she always came in anyway. But you could just see the cloud had just dropped over her, and I'd see her as she walked through the door, and I'm thinking, oh gee, it's gonna be one of those days. Because when she'd come in sad, she could lift maybe 1/4 of what she could lift on a day where she was able to pull herself out of the grief and focus on what she wanted to do. But she also said, this is the only thing that leaves her feeling happy and works out her depression.
Please, back up right away.
I think somebody asked her about weightlifting, and she said, well, the pain of lifting weights makes the pain of Ashley not being here. I can't think of it when I have other kinds of pain. So that was an interesting, positive thing to do with pain, you know, is take your pain and do something good with it. There's not very many people that can do that, and that's what Linda tries to do.
7, squeeze, stretch it all the way down.
It doesn't make the pain go away. It doesn't make me feel, I don't know that it makes me feel better about Ashley, but it gives me a purpose. It gives me a way to shine a light on her, on this, on us.
7, yeah, feels good when it hurts.
Weightlifting got Linda through each day, keeping her moving forward, lifting further, training harder. She decided she was curious about competition, that she wanted to participate and pose on stage. However, besides Linda's age, an old shoulder injury prevented her from raising one of her arms. All of these factors immediately eliminated her from any possibility of competing in a bodybuilding contest, or at least That was the conventional wisdom.
So much is possible, and there's a lot of things that are impossible. So when I knew she wanted to be a bodybuilder, I told her, I said, you can have so much fun in the gym. I can bring you so far. I can train you like a bodybuilder, but taking it on stage is another step that is not going to be something you're going to be able to do. But you can have all the fun of looking like a bodybuilder and training like a bodybuilder. So I really tried to kind of squelch her dream just a little bit and rain on her parade just a tad, even though that's not the method I like to use, but one must be realistic.
Even though she had so many challenges and obstacles, both real and imagined, any one of which should have stopped her from even thinking of competing successfully in a sport dominated by people half her age, Linda's determination and drive was unstoppable.
After about a year, she was looking really good, and I said, you know, you could do a show, but I thought you could do a figure show, which means you just come out and you stand and you do quarter turns so no one could see that she had a discrepancy on her symmetry. I thought the biggest turning point in Linda came when she found out she was going to be getting on stage, and she really had a purpose and a focus. Even though she would still have her sad days, she had many more happy days, of goal-setting days, and days where she could see that there was some type of hope on her horizon. Left arm a little closer to the body, quarter turn to the right. Good, quarter turn to the right. Quarter turn to the right.
I'm so happy for her. And she did, and she said, I have first show in the Marysville. Can you come? I said, sure, why not? I drove over there. This time, that's a tear of the, my joint tears. I was so happy for her. Looks like she's starting her life.
In my own place on that stage, I sort of had my little Ashley moment where I said, Ashley, is this really okay with you? I mean, is this really okay with you? And her response was something like, oh, duh. I mean, she thinks it's great that I'm doing something that's so totally, completely bizarre. But it's almost like I felt I had to get permission from her to be happy and to do something that made me happy. And it's like I needed her permission to succeed at anything.
Our Grandmasters winner was...
As a result of me going to her bodybuilding competition, I was just amazed. She was so inspiring. She got up on that stage and I was just amazed of the bravery. First of all, the confidence level that she had just to get up there, especially at our age.
After the show was over, so many people came up to me. And it wasn't about, oh, wow, you're hot. It was about, wow, I'm so inspired. It's like, wow. They were just so touched that it had nothing to do with me being up there in a skimpy suit. It was about, you lost a child and you're up there and you're honoring her and you're doing something that's demanding so much of you. And it just, that was what was so amazing.
So the first season, she was jazzed just to get on stage. So got her a fancy little posing suit and taught her the figure poses and got her some heels, and she got out on stage and did really well, but she was always chomping at the bit, always wanted more. She wanted bigger muscles and she wanted to do a routine. Squeeze, split that chest and relax. That's it, good job, you got them all. When you get to do your routine, that's when you get to show your own uniqueness. What's different about me? What sets me apart from my competitors? And so it's like your moment to shine and show your individuality. Yeah. Make sure your toes don't do this. You want to turn it out. Remember, everything
you know what I'm
is
focusing.
to show a muscle group. And if you're here, you can no longer see the muscle group.
That's exactly what I did.
So, yes. And then what comes after this, after you go here, here, yeah. And then before you do this, you have to stay tall when you're doing this, because you were doing it like this. And it loses the effect. So
This
tall,
one here.
Tall.
Once I did that one show, then I was hooked. And then this year, I won an all-around first place in 4 categories. I was the best woman in the whole show as far as bodybuilding, That showed that my very first competition this year as a bodybuilder, I was honored with the best poser of the entire show, 130 competitors, and I was the best poser, men and women. It was amazing.
So she did several shows and just got better and better. She got more trophies and more trophies. And as she gathered trophies, she morphed and became bigger and prouder and less sad and was becoming a very competitive athlete. So.
And our winner of the Grand Masters for the Western USA for the ladies, number 57, Linda Berry.
I think it's wonderful that my mom found something that gets her through the day. I mean, I'm sure there's other ways to say it, because it doesn't just get her through the day. It's obviously like a new pedestal on her life goals, and something that she's completed and continues to work at. I can't say I do the same thing, but I applaud my mom.
Are you want to be playing?
I'm very different than my mom. I'm not into tattoos, and personally, it wouldn't be a choice for me, bodybuilding and being real competitive. I'm not competitive. At least I don't feel that I'm a competitive person. But I want my mom to do things that are good for her. I want her to, feel good about things that she's doing.
So this very last season, she got to go to the Olympia, and she was able to get both arms up, and she ended up winning the silver medal, and she was thrilled. I was so proud of her, and it's like she's gone full circle from walking through the door, and I was just like, oh my God, what am I gonna have to work with here? There's no way she could ever be on stage, to coming out on stage and going from a figure girl to a bodybuilder to a silver medalist at the National Olympia. So she's done way more than she expected or I expected.
She has come such a long way from being very quiet and timid when we first met her to this positive, powerful, outgoing individual. It was just amazing. Her whole demeanor started changing, and she started becoming more of an inspiration than anyone in the group that I had fellowshipped with.
As we say, that's it.
Okay. I've always been very fit and trim, and I used to work out quite a bit years ago. And when I met Linda, it brought me back to the time when I was working out with my son.
Linda became an inspiration and motivation not only to her friends, but everyone else who heard her story.
I'm almost stuck, is where I'm at. I'm stuck in life right now. My son and I, Derek, we would go to the club and work out, and when he passed away, it took me over a year to get back into the health club. Then I started working out at the gym that Linda works out because she inspired me to go work out at the gym. And her trainer trains her there, and she's done very well in her competitions. She actually encouraged me to go into the gym and start working out.
My mom always tells me one day at a time, and that's why my mom chose to deal with it how she did. And she was around people, and she got into grief therapy, and she got into bodybuilding, and she continued to work. Not that anybody can get over a death, but I'd like to say that we were at a good place.
I think what Linda has done is a great role model because she's not stuck in the house. She's moving beyond her pain and doing something positive to bring life back into her life again. Instead of sadness and grief and staying stuck, she's learning to live life again. It was a way for her to take her focus off of the pain and put it into something positive, which I encouraged her to do, and now she's Miss Olympia.
Yeah. We'll find out first set.
Yes. Okay, these are gonna be heavy. We're only gonna do 6.
I've noticed a change in myself. I noticed that I'm a lot happier, and I am looking forward to her training and her guidance in her health and nutrition, so that I'll have an opportunity to, at one point, get up on stage and be the same, and that is excited about life. So I started going there and working out at that club, and actually started feeling better about myself and started getting more positive in life, and that there is some light at the end of the tunnel.
Linda's accomplishments and achievements, along with her transformation, were carried over even into her work environment. As a teacher's assistant at San Juan High School in the town of Citrus Heights in Northern California.
I approached Linda to see if she wanted to be part of a school-wide project that I was working on centered around fast food and nutrition. And since Linda is a bodybuilder, I asked her if she would like to teach a class in bodybuilding, and she said yes.
As soon as I heard she had a class during, like, it was a spirit day or something, it's the first chance I got, I signed up. Miss Berry's affected me in more than one way than just our workout. From the workout, she's taught me that better ways to work out at home and to bring different workouts into our routine during wrestling. If I'm having a bad day and I come in and see her and her big smile and her having a good day, it makes me feel good.
Okay. I mean, once you get it, you'll get it.
They were signing up for the class of weightlifting and bodybuilding, and they said, "Who's teaching the class?" And I said, "Miss Berry." And they said, "It's a woman that's teaching it?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "Oh, I'm not taking it then." And I said, "Why don't you just go ahead and try?" And I think you'll be pretty amazed at what you see. And so when they took the class, they came back later and the responses were, "Wow, I had no idea." When she lifted those weights and she took off her shirt, I couldn't believe what I saw.
It shows me if she can do it, why can't I? And if she's this happy at her age, and that it shows that we should have hope that we'll always be happy, and that we should keep a positive attitude and not let stuff get to us.
I think that the kids envision bodybuilding by what they see in the muscle magazines. I think they think of the big Hulk, and I think of muscling up and big, huge muscles. I think they had no idea that strength can be packaged in such a tiny body, and that strength is really not about hulking up, it's about being fit. And I think that Linda absolutely exemplifies that. And the kids, yes, were amazed and astonished. They totally did not expect what they saw.
All of the Alice in Wonderland characters.
If everybody was like Miss Berry and just let everything roll off their shoulders and always have a happy attitude, the world would definitely be a better place. It would be for me.
Hands down, an absolutely life-changing workshop.
Linda then decided to train at something altogether different. She continued to spread all of her positive life energy to people in other areas in another realm, as a grief recovery counselor herself.
So I went to support groups, I went to Grief Share, I went to mom's dinners, I read books, I talked to people. Well, then one of the ladies, Denise, she was delivering this workshop called Grief Recovery. It was in correlation with doing that workshop that I took my bodybuilding to the competitive level. Because that workshop, it did something to where something shifted. And then about 6 months later, I did it again. And this time I was not quite as raw, so I really got enough out of it to where I knew that it had totally changed my life.
You didn't do the lost history autograph, please?
Kept looking into training, and I went through the Grief Recovery Institute through Southern California. Changed my life, how I think about grief and how I look at people and their journey in life, grieving the loss of a person or a job or any kind of grief. And so I see people differently. And we are doing a tour, Angels Across the USA. We travel all over the United States, speaking to people that have lost children and general grief sometimes too, and just trying to give them hope that they can make it through their grieving process.
Okay, that's it. Everybody's here?
The two things that are really the most profound, that have really sort of propelled me from being a lump on the floor to starting to have zest for life, is coming to these support groups with the moms, but doing this workshop. And I went, oh my gosh, this workshop changed my life. I have got to get trained. And it's literally one day. It was after we had a mom's dinner, and once again I told the moms, there's this incredible workshop. Gosh, one of these days I'm going to have to check into getting certified.
Linda not only got her certification to help people who are grieving over a lost loved one, but she also then became an activist. She eventually went toe-to-toe with the California State Assembly and contributed to the enactment of a new California state law dealing with redefining bulimia, anorexia, and eating disorders for insurance and legal sanction purposes. She testified in front of the Assembly's Health Committee, convening to consider creation of an official eating disorder resolution designed to increase the public's awareness of the dangers of eating disorders.
The most significant thing about Ashley, though, is she suffered from an eating disorder. She would flip from being bulimic and anorexic. There are certain criteria by insurance companies that are required in order for them to cover a person that has an eating disorder. The criteria is so ridiculous that nobody is covered. Nobody meets the criteria, so therefore insurance companies don't have to cover you, which is because they don't really believe the magnitude of how deadly eating disorders are. So I was asked to speak before the Assembly.
Item number 5, ACR 28, Ms. Ma's resolution on Eating Disorders Awareness Week. Welcome, Ms. Ma.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members. Before I begin, I want to let the committee know that I am accepting amendments to the resolution. ACR 28 declares February 22nd through 28th, 2009, and February 21st through the 27th, 2010 as Eating Disorders Awareness Week.
This is my daughter, Ashley, Specialist for Ashley Caines, United States Army Reserves. Ashley would probably be in Iraq right now, deployed. By the time she died, she was twice this size. Even after Ashley died, I was in direct contact with the Sacramento Coroner's Office and the pathologist doing the autopsy. And when both of them told me that their initial findings were inconclusive and they did not know what caused my daughter's death, I had to explain to them how what they were seeing was a 23-year-old girl dying of bulimia. And only then did they understand. And if these level of medical experts don't know what they're seeing, then parents aren't going to know, insurance companies aren't going to know. And even on Ashley's death certificate, everything on her death certificate suggesting an eating disorder, but that term is never used.
On behalf of the committee, we're very, very sorry about your loss, and thank you for sharing your tragic loss with the committee and with the legislature so that we understand the true gravity of this disorder. Are there any other witnesses who wish to speak in support of the measure?
The purpose of this was to get a bill passed to rectify the criteria that dictated when an insurance company could or could not authorize coverage for eating disorders in particular. It's not the perfect situation, but it was definitely a huge step in the direction of correcting a system that was really, really preventing a lot of people from getting necessary coverage.
As a result of Linda's testimony and the efforts of the other California State Assembly members, like the leading proponent of the resolution, Fiona Ma, the California State Assembly has formally declared a week in February as Eating Disorders Awareness Week. And furthermore, directed the California Department of Public Health to undertake the nation's foremost in-depth study of eating disorders.
The whole package in an unfortunate way to really send a message to people about eating disorders. You have the one that survived and the one that didn't survive. And it's really intense and it's really strong, but if we can use my story and Ashley's story and even just save one person, that would be amazing.
And we'll do a toast.
Okay.
Yes, that way. Okay.
Linda's life story so far is one of great achievement and triumph, as well as terrible tragedy and loss. Throughout it all, Linda's extraordinarily supportive, caring spirit and love for her family carried her above her trials and tribulations to a place where she could begin to live and to enjoy life fully again. Her magnetism, charm, and humor melt all those who come in contact with her and leave them happier for having had a chance to spend time in her company. She is leaving a legacy of herself to honor Ashley, not only of success as an athlete, lawmaker, teacher, counselor, friend, mother, and motivational speaker, but also as an all-embracing, compassionate, fully realized human being, developing a better understanding of life, the universe, and everything that matters.